All right, guys, it's late, but I couldn't wait for tomorrow morning. So, whenever you're watching this is a reflection of what I did to get me where I'm at. So, if you want to, grab some popcorn, grab some iced coffee, and sit back. So, here's why I decided to do this. Like I said, I was going to wait till tomorrow morning, but I thought, you know what? I can't because this is fresh in my mind and people will watch it whenever they watch it, right? Thank God for Facebook and technology. So, in case you don't know, I'm an international executive president's team member with Herbalife. And all that means is I have helped a lot of people. And I've achieved let me not be modest. And I have achieved the top 1% of Herbalife. So, disclaimer, right? However, that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk to you guys about what it took for me to get to where I'm at. So I had a very interesting conversation today. And if you saw my last post, I shared a picture of me with a bunch of girls because they challenged me about something. And although I have gone through a lot of transformation with my life, I still will say that inside of me, I still have a competitive edge. And I love to be challenged. I love to have someone tell me you can't do something. And if someone tells me you can't do something and it really doesn't matter, and I'm like, okay, fine, you're right, I don't care. But if it matters to me, I'm like, watch me. So, why am I saying all of this? So I was listening to this guy. I'll put the link down here. His name is Ask Gary Vee Show. And he was talking to a young girl about what it's going to take for her to build her empire. And she is 23 years old. And she was like, I want to be a millionaire by the time I'm 25. And I'm not going to repeat everything he said. You guys can watch the YouTube video. I'll put it on here. But he went off on her about how unrealistic those goals were. And he's like, I know you're not going to do it because the fact that you want to do it in 2 years is unrealistic. You're going to give up. And anyway, I was listening to the video and then after the video, I talked to somebody who fired me up about something because it made me think back. So I started my business when I was 23 years old. Probably that's why the video was so relevant to me. And I had just graduated from college, just like this girl. And just like this girl, I'm calling her girl because I'm 40, right? But just like this lady, I wanted to conquer the world. And I will tell you something. I mean, you guys have to listen to this video. But one of the things that he said is sacrifice a lot. Like, give up your weekends, give up luxury, give up a lot of things and go hard. He said for 6 years. Now, disclaimer, with Herbalife, well, actually anything, if you really dedicate your time, the timeline will be different for everybody. But he talks about 6 years. And as I was listening to this, I thought, oh my gosh, that's what I did. Like, I graduated from college, just like this girl, and I was lost. I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And maybe you guys haven't just graduated from college. Maybe you are in a moment in your life where you're like, I want to do something with my life. So that was me. I felt like I needed to be over here. I didn't know where that over here was, but I knew I wanted to be somewhere different than where I was. And I remember going back to live with my parents. And I'm not going to lie, although my parents lived in a beautiful home, I felt like I was such a loser. Like, oh my God, I'm living with my mom. Now, granted, I was 23 years old. Okay, I was really hard on myself. But thank God I have that. Because that's back then, right? I mean, I have a different drive now, but I had that drive where I was like, I want to do something. And I remember somebody, the same person I spoke to today, he has this way, it's a really good friend of mine. He has this way of saying things. I'm like, F you, buddy, but in a good way. And he said back then, he said, you live a rich man's welfare. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? And he meant that I lived in all these luxuries, but with a welfare budget. And I can't even tell you how, just thinking about it, it gets me all heated, how much that affected me. I was like, F you, buddy. And so, when he said that, I don't know if that's what did it, but the point is, I got my butt to work. And I remember I was 23 years old. I didn't have a car. I would borrow my mom's vehicle. I would have like $20 to my name. And I had to be very wise on how I would spend that money over the week. And I remember my parents lived up in this hill called El Dorado Hills. And I remember driving down, listening to specific CD every single day. And I would drive down and I wouldn't come back home until my job was done. My plan was executed. And if you're wondering what plan that is, I'll tell you, but I don't know if you'll even do it. But here it goes, because now times are so different, right? But I would have a plan of doing X amount of flyers, X amount, hi guys, X amount of pull tabs, X amount of contacts. And I remember, you guys, like, I remember one time, like, you know, I had and then I would do all these appointments and I would meet with people to, you know, explain the business, explain the products. And I would just pray that somebody would buy something so that I had money to eat, right? Because the 20 bucks was pretty much for gas. And I remember sometimes I would, you know, this is a good thing about being charming. I would walk into somebody's home because I had an appointment with them and I'm like, que rico huele. And thank God for Latinos people. They always have food and they always want to feed you. So people would be like, ¿Quieres comer? And I was like, oh, okay. But it was because I was freaking hungry. And I would eat for free. And there they were. I would build relationships with them and then they would feed me and then I would end up selling them product. But anyhow, I wouldn't go back home until I finished all that work. And I did this. I went hard. I remember I started in the month of tax season, April. I had graduated from USC and I had a job, which I quit before my 90 days. I went back home with $6 to my name. I told my parents, like, I want to do this Herbalife thing. And but this was in April. In April, May, 2 months into the business, I was so frustrated because nothing was happening. I hadn't gotten rich. I hadn't been successful. And I remember being so discouraged. And I remember thinking, like, this is not for me. I can't do this. And, you know, and this guy, Gary Vee, again, I'll put the link on here. He said something. He said, work with intensity and be patient. I wish I would have heard that back then. So I was working with intensity, but I was not patient. I remember I was so frustrated because I was like, this is not working for me. I'm not doing this Herbalife thing anymore. And I was so ready to quit. But here's what I want to tell you guys. At that moment, I remember I called one of my cousins. Thank God, Patty Bedoya. Thank you. Shout out to her. I remember calling her and telling her, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to work this business. And she said, come with me. I'll show you. And I spent I don't know if it was a week, a few days with her. I drove 2 hours. I spent the night over there with her, however many days I was there. And I literally was with her from the moment we left the house to the moment we came back. So what's the lesson? When you want something bad enough, there are always resources to get you what you want. There are always people that are willing to show you how to do it. So for those of you guys who are listening, whether you want to be a rapper, a singer, a dancer, a designer, a carpet cleaner, whatever it is, just know that there's always somebody out there that can show you. So I went to her house, I stayed with her, and I was like, okay, how do I do this Herbalife thing? And she showed me, and long story short, what she showed me, I then came back to Sacramento in the month of June, and I got my butt to work, and I did my first 90-day plan, June, July, and August. And it was August, the third week of August, when I was ready to quit again. Because again, I was like, oh my God, this is not working. I'm not rich. I'm not successful. Like, it's not working. And I had only done it for 2.5 months. So I drove to San Jose 2 hours for a meeting, for a success training seminar. And at that weekend, I told my cousin Patty, I'm like, this is not working. This is not working. And here's what happened. I got a phone call from one of my friends, said, let's go to London. Bring your money. Everything else is paid for. And I was thinking, I'm going to go to London. I'm going to work, make money, go to London and come back and get a real job. I'm going to go and do something else. And I remember, it's like, oh my God. So you guys need to be careful. When you want something, the universe will test you. People will be around you that will test you to see how bad you really want it. It's almost like God would be like, here, tease her with a distraction and see if she bites. Because if she bites, then she doesn't want it bad enough. So that was my teaser. And I remember it was August 17th and 18th. And I got the call. And I remember thinking, okay, I have 2 weeks to make this happen. And guess what happened? I kept doing my 90-day plan because thank God, thank you, Patty. She was like, just finish your plan. Just finish your plan. And I was like, this is not working. This is not for me. This is not working. 2.5 months, you guys. But anyway, so after that, I remember the following weekend, there was another STS, another success training seminar. And I was just going to go for the HOM because back then only the HOM was free. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the HOM and I'm going to come back home. And I remember sitting there and the guy that was speaking said, it was in August, so it was warm in Sacramento, said, look, it's super warm. You could be at the lake, but you can go to this, party, which I was going to. And he went on and on and on. He said, but if you like what you drive, which I didn't have a car, if you like where you live, I live with my parents, and if you like the money in your bank account, I didn't even have a checkings account. He said, go ahead and go. Leave. But if you don't like those things, I invite you to stay. And I remember I was there with my brother Eric and his friend Obi, and I carpooled with them. And they're like, okay, we're leaving. And listen to this, 23 years old. I remember looking at them and said, I want to stay. And they're like, well, we're leaving. And I'm like, I want to stay. And the ticket was $40. So I asked Eileen Menace. I'll never forget this, right? Which, by the way, I still owe her the $40. I got to find her. I don't know where she's at anymore. But she was my angel. And I said, Eileen, will you let me borrow $40? And she's like, sure. She gave me the $40. And I said, will you take me home? She said, yeah. And so I stayed. Here is the lesson behind that. How many times do you carpool in with someone and have them literally drive your life? Think about that. How many times do you get in the vehicle that's not yours, called somebody else's plan, and then you go on their plan because they say that that's what they want to do? And then you completely get deviated from your plan because of somebody else's plan. So that day I stayed. And I was like, okay, I ended up staying. That one training completely changed my life. Okay. So I was thinking about this today after this ridiculous conversation that I had today. Sometimes you guys, you need to have those ridiculous conversations. I'm going to tell you something totally side note. I don't have people in my life who cannot speak the truth. Even though I hate every single time they tell me the truth, at the end, I know they do it because they care. At least because I think they care, okay? So my friends, whenever I ask them something, they tell me, and sometimes I'm like, give me 5 minutes or I'll call you back because I'm really pissed. And then I'll reflect on what they said. And 99% of the time, they're only speaking the truth. So that's what happened today. I was so pissed. I was like, F you. But anywho, it made me think after I watched this video, I'm like, you know what? That's what I did. Like, I was 23. I was hungry for life, and I remember like nothing could stop me. And I remember when Obi and my brother left, I remember staying there and taking notes, and it was one phrase. I changed everything for me. After that, I got my butt to work like crazy, laser focus. My brothers were pissed because I was like on it, and they were like, let's go do this. I'm like, no. Like, I was no longer carpooling in their life. I was doing my own thing. I didn't even have a car, okay, you guys, but I just was doing my own thing. And I remember that last week of August, for those of you guys who are in Herbalife will know what this means. I qualified 3 supervisors and made $2,000. Disclaimer, right? It's what's possible, but not typical. I made $2,000 those last 2 weeks. And my girlfriends were like, you ready to go to London? I was like, I'm not going anywhere. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't go. Now, I don't know what came over me today after I hung up that conversation that I had. Started to think, like, where did that hunger come from? I have no freaking clue. I really don't know where that hunger came from. All I know, I was 23 and I was just hungry. I was hungry for succeed. I was hungry. I was just hungry to get it. So I ask you guys, what are you hungry for? And if you've lost that hunger, I know I've lost it many times, more times than I want to even admit, but that's just the truth. Who can you call? Who can you surround yourself with that can remind you of not only what you're capable of, but that hunger that you really do have inside of you? And if you don't have people around you that can do that, go to a success training seminar. If you're in Herbalife, go to those STSs. Find a president's team member. Find a MILT team member. Find somebody who can give it to you, even if you don't want to hear it. Okay? So I'm going to tell you something. Like I tell my team, the other day my husband asked me something. His question was this: what do you think about blah, blah, blah? And I told him exactly what I thought about blah, blah, blah. And he got all mad. He's like, and I'm like, then don't ask me. Don't ask me what I think, because I'm going to tell you the truth. So I invite you. I only have people in my life that are like that. I don't like it, okay? Honestly, like, it pisses me off, which is why I was like, I can't even sleep. I'm like, I haven't even, look, let me show you something. I have some tea. I was like, I better not drink this because I'm really not going to sleep because I'm pissed in a good way. So anywho, so yeah, it made me just think like what happened. So fast forward, I got my butt to work 2 weeks later. This event came September 8th and 9th in Long Beach, California. I lived in Sacramento, which was, up north. This was in Long Beach. And I remember just thinking like, I have to go to this event. I was 23 years old. By then I had a car. And I remember inviting some people to come with me. I brought 8 people from Sacramento to Long Beach. And that event, I remember walking in with 8 people. And my dad was like, what? And I was like, yeah, here they are, okay? And John Peterson was the guest speaker. And from there, my business blew up. And all I can tell you without getting into details is that all I can tell you is from that event, from September, it makes me so emotional, from September 9th and 10th, that STS, that leadership training, with John Peterson and Clem Heron, which by the way, they're both passed away. It completely changed everything. I remember thinking like I was 23 and just going for it. It was cold. It was raining in Sacramento. It gets cold. Okay, guys. It was cold. It was raining. And it just didn't matter, and so many times people would tell me I wasn't normal. People would say that I was crazy and that I worked too much and my friends stopped talking to me. But it didn't matter. Like, I was so clear on what I wanted, and that was to get the hell out of my parents' house. That's just the truth, okay? I just wanted to get out of my parents' house. But that was my first driving force. I had the car, and I had this $600 payment that I needed to figure out how the hell to pay it. And I just wanted to get out of my parents' house. I mean, I love my parents, and their house was dope, but I just felt like such a loser living there. And once I was able to move out of my parents' house, I lived in an apartment with the roommate, which that wasn't fun, but at least it was on my own, And I say this with a lot of respect, you guys. There are people that are grown, that are 30, 40 years old, and still living with mom and dad. And I just have to say, like, I don't know if that's what you want, that's great. But at the end of the day, there's more to life. And yeah, I better stop because it's making me really emotional. But and I haven't even had any wine, okay? But I just want to say, you guys, whatever it is that you want for your life, go for it. And if you can take a couple of lessons from this, is this. Be willing to sacrifice some things. Sometimes people won't understand it. Sometimes people will criticize it. Actually, I shouldn't say sometimes. People will never understand it. People will never, they will always criticize you because they don't understand what you're doing. They don't understand why you're doing it. It doesn't matter that they understand or don't understand. What matters is if you understand and if you know why you're doing what you're doing. So I just felt compelled to record this. It's like, I don't know, really late. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, I'm gonna wait till tomorrow, and I'm like, nah. Good thing for technology, people can watch it whenever they want. But I hope this brings some insight to you. Number one, go for what you want. No, nobody will ever, not everybody will always accept it. Not everybody will always be encouraging. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you want. And you only live once, right? So, and if you're young, take advantage of it. If you're not married and you don't have kids, really take advantage of it. I love my husband. I love my child. But I got to say, life has definitely changed since I've been married and had a kid. I built my business when I was 23 years old. 13 months after I started my business, I was 24 years old, and I was a millionaire team member, which is like means my business is doing $1 million in business. 13 months, guys, of focused, laser focus, weekends, working on the weekends, working nights. It was like, I don't know where the heck I got so much energy and so much drive and so much hunger. I really don't know where it all came from, but obviously it's inside of me, and I think it's inside of all of us. So I just encourage you guys to think about what it is that you want. Make a plan. Surround yourself with people that are not going to let you, how can I say this nicely? They're not going to let you believe your own bullshit. This guy, Gary Vee, I'll put his link. He said, you can bluff and bullshit a loser, but you cannot bluff and bullshit someone who's been successful. So I'll leave you with that. Good night, guys.